That just makes me think of Rocky, and I'm just like, it's the eye of the tiger, it's the thrill of the fight, rising up to the challenge of our rivals, and the last known survivor stalks his prey in the night, and he's watching us all with the eye of the tiger. Did you like my fake microphone?
Yeah, I
When I
loved
have
it.
a real microphone right here?
Yes.
I
You
didn't
can't really.
want to.
I mean, you could like pick it up and use it, but it would make a lot of noise. So I can see why you'd used a fake one. Like if you were into it and really grabbed it,
I'd fuck some shit up.
yeah. But that makes me think of football games and marching band. That song.
That makes me think of Rock Band.
I turned on the noise cancellation for my headphones, and it feels like a whole new world.
Oh, I bet. I forgot to turn on echo cancellation. I'm so sorry. Can you hear any echoing?
No.
Okay.
Well, how we doing, poppies? What up?
We're back, and we're bad. Send us to prison.
So
because we're back and we're bad. That's my only reasoning.
I'm in prison for being bad.
It's like those 30 days in or 60 days in. Have you ever seen those shows?
No.
Even though I don't support much of our justice system, Megan and I do love watching like jail and prison shows. And there's a prison show called, it's either 30 days or 60 days in, where people go in pretending to be inmates, and it's like a documentary. And I just picture one of them going in and like one of the actual inmates being like, "What are you in for?" And they're like, "I was bad."
That's naughty.
You automatically get beat up in prison.
Well, this is the third episode we've recorded tonight, so I feel like we don't really have a lot of chitter chatter to do.
No, and I feel like you have a lot to share with us, and
I do.
You've worked very hard. So,
yeah,
if I may ask, Papa PP, what are you educating us on this evening?
We're going to be talking about Nutty Putty Cave, the Nutty Putty Cave incident, and the death of John Edward Jones. Trigger warning, humongous trigger warning for anybody who is claustrophobic. Just don't listen to this episode, and we'll see you next time. I'm not particularly claustrophobic, but researching this made my heart start racing, if I'm being honest. So, like, if that's something that bothers you, don't listen, and that's totally fine. But
yeah, I definitely will have points where I'm gonna go, "Oh my god, no," vomit, and like different things like that. I have a really big, like, it's not a phobia, but I don't like feeling trapped or being held down. I don't know where it stems from originally, but I remember when I was young, probably like 12, and this might be it, and it might not be anything older than that. I was at a party, and because I was the oldest of the kids that were at the party, I was like the quote unquote babysitter. And they had a mini version of those giant tarps you used to play with in school.
Yeah.
You remember that? And
I think you've told me this story, but
yeah, you took turns like running underneath of it, and like we were playing it and I ran underneath of it, and all of the kids that I was watching sat down on the tarp and held me down underneath of it, and it just freaked me out. So even when I'm sleeping, like if my animals are laying on either side of my feet particularly, or like holding my legs down, I'm like, I love you guys, but you have to move. So like the idea of being in a small space and not being able to move is freaky, but not to the point where I can't hear the story.
Yeah. Let me put this on the other side so I don't stare at myself and I actually look at you this time.
Please stare at yourself. I like it when you stare at yourself.
All right, you ready to hear this story?
I'm ready, and I also can't. I hope you're gonna like let us know where the name Nutty Putty Cave came from, because
I'm going to.
It's like to me, it's like Nutty Putty automatically makes me think of the Nutty Professor, and then I think of Nutty Buddies, the treat, the I don't know what you would call them, the snack. Love Nutty Buddies, and then if I hear putty, I think of like stuff you play with.
The like silly putty, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're going to talk a little bit about like the history of the cave, how it was discovered, and then we're going to talk about a few different little short stories that kind of not necessarily tie in. I'll get into it, and then we'll talk about the incident, and then we'll talk about after the incident. So that's what I think we're going to go through. So when Dale Green and a group of his friends discovered Nutty Putty Cave in 1960, it quickly gained notoriety for its cramped, slippery corridors, turns, and squeezes. Some different names given to the different cave sections are the birth canal, the aorta crawl, and the maze, and they're named for their resemblance to the circulatory system.
Wow.
Yeah. So Nutty Putty Cave it's a solution cave, which is created when weakly acidic rainwater seeps through the soils and percolates through fractures in the bedrock, and it dissolves the rock.
Percolates.
But in the cave,
love the word percolate. I'm sorry.
It's a fun name, or it's a fun word.
Percolate me, Papa. Name. I'm gonna change my name legally to Percolate. Percolate Anne.
That's a good word. Percolate. I also really like, I was telling Madison the other day, I really like the word lunch. Not because it's like associated with food, it just feels good in your mouth. You know, like lunch.
Yeah. Yeah. And then gyrate is kind of like percolate. Yes. And there's that one Black Eyed Peas song. Is it the one that's like mix your milk with my cocoa? No. It might be that same one that's like, I like the way that you moving them breasts, baby bouncing that something. I don't know. It could not be that song.
I don't
know. But percolate just makes me think of shaken.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So the cave is I said that. Okay. So, but in the case of Nutty Putty Cave, the limestone was eroded from the bottom up, slowly eaten away by boiling water, forced upwards from deep within the earth, creating what is known as a hydrogenic cave. Isn't that crazy?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, how rain fall down, no fall up.
Yeah.
But ooh.
Yeah.
Weird. So, but cool. The earth's really cool too.
It is. In the process of its creation, the viscous clay within the walls of the cave gets heated and it transforms from hard rock into a squishy elastic substance similar to silly putty. And when viscous. Dale Green viscous.
I love that word too. Oh god.
When Dale Green and his friends discovered the cave, they first started referring to it as Silly Putty Cave because of that clay texture. But eventually they decided that Nutty Putty sounded better, and that's the name that stuck.
I want to discover a random place and get to name it something weird.
Right?
Like, what if I just found a sinkhole and just named it, like, ground asshole?
Ground asshole. You just go to Florida and just go searching for sinkholes. And then you can name it that.
And then I'll be like, ground asshole 1, ground asshole 2.
Yes.
It's a series of ground assholes.
So when Dale and his friends discovered the cave, they weren't really impressed by it. He said, quote, "It didn't really have anything pretty in it, and there aren't a lot of places where you can stand up. So you're pretty much just crawling around all the time, and you get really muddy." And that quote alone, I'm like, why would you want to go in there then? If there's nothing pretty, why are you going in there?
Yeah, and why'd you go in there in the first place? And also just being in a space where I can only crawl around freaks me out. I think I've always been like this, and maybe I was born with it because I remember in elementary school, we had this obstacle course thing we had to do, and I was a chunky kid, and I had a hard time sometimes, and they're part of the obstacle course, they had like an old metal barrel that was hollowed out, and you had to climb through it like on your belly, like army crawl, and I always hated that because I felt like I was going to get stuck, which I never actually did, but I still hated it.
Well, I think there's like certain spots where you might not be able to stand like directly up, but you're not on your hands and knees the whole time, but it's still not comfortable. I don't think.
Yeah, just something about not being able to walk or run.
Yeah,
Like, imagine
definitely.
having to run away from something in that cave on your hands and knees. Like speed crawl.
No.
No.
So I found this website that it used to be a place that people would go to read up about info about the cave, and it had like specific directions to it, but now it has a big thing on the top because the cave is sealed shut now, and I'll get into that. But um, I got this general info for people who were thinking about visiting, and it says take a headlamp with fresh batteries. A flashlight would be inadequate because there's a lot of climbing and crawling required, so you'll need both hands. And the cave is really warm inside, so dress accordingly. And the guy said he usually wears like cargo shorts and like a long shirt. And he said wear knee pads so you can stay as comfortable as possible. You will be extremely dirty and thirsty when you exit, so be prepared. I feel
No.
like
That
that's
sounds like
probably a
no.
nightmare.
My knees could never. Like, since I had that
Mhm.
knee surgery, I can barely even put like pressure on that leg at all. Not the leg, but the
Mhm.
knee, like kneeling. So
Yeah.
hard pass from Sammy.
So the cave is located just west of Salt Lake City, Utah, and the only entrance can be found at the top of a hill called Blowhole Hill. And the entrance is 6 feet in diameter, and it drops 15 feet straight down, which is why it's
Bl-
called Blowhole Hill.
It should be called Gaping Asshole Hill.
Yeah. If you should have discovered it first.
I should have. When was it discovered? Was I born?
No, it was 1960.
Exactly. People
How
need
dare
to
you not
stop
get born
discovering.
earlier?
I'm sorry, blame my parents, who were like 4 and 5 in that time.
So when you get to the bottom of the quote blowhole, the bottom of the 15-foot drop, you must crawl for 20 feet until the cave opens up into a room. And from there, you have two options. You could follow a rope that guides you down what is called the big slide, which is like a narrow tunnel that's very
Whee!
like eroded down. So like you basically can just slide all the way down it, which sounds
That sounds
fun,
kind of
honestly.
like fun. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So if you follow the rope down the big slide, you would go through the birth canal and into the aorta crawl. So after the big slide, it gets really complicated because the birth canal is very tight and the aorta crawl is tighter than that. And I'll get into the length and whatever. Um,
The earth
and
is
then
like, I will not be dilating to birth you.
exactly.
Yeah. Although the birth canal doesn't actually dilate, it's the cervix, I know, but like whatever. But honestly, like you go down a big slide and then you end up in the birth canal. Like these boys were like, let's talk about women or let's talk about vaginas. I don't know. Also, I wanted to note that I think it's really weird that people call big openings in caves rooms because to me, a room is in a building with 4 walls, and the fact that you crawl 20 feet to a room just freaks me out. It also just, I think about the room as, or the room, the movie As Above, So Below.
I've never seen it.
It's terrifying, dude. Picture like demonic, haunting hellscape, midsummer vibe, like together in the catacombs under Paris.
Oh, that sounds horrifying.
It is, but it's a great movie. Anyways, I'm gonna try to stop.
No, no, you're good. You're fine. So if you don't go down the big slide, you can visit what is called the maze, which is the one I would choose if I were ever to go here. I can't now, but if I were ever before it was closed, um, I would visit the maze, and it consists of many rooms connected by narrow corridors, and all of this together has a length of 1,400 feet of tunnels and a depth of 145 feet below the Earth's surface.
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Also, I would love to go into a cave. I think the only time I would go is if it were one that were frequently traveled so people could tell me if it was safe or not. It
Yeah.
would have to be one of those that is more like you can walk through it, like there's a railing and it's large, so I don't feel like it. But the idea of being below the surface of the earth more than just on a subway or, in a basement is really fucking freaky to me, because just like bones kind of freak me out because that's the foundation of our body. And if something happens to that, like your body's going to flop over. If you're in the earth, like under its crust, and that goes down, like, ooh,
You're dead. Yeah.
ooh, yeah. You're just
I
it's like a whole different weird. It's so cool. I love earth
It
science.
is.
I love rocks. But
Uh-huh.
ugh,
I don't know if I ever told you this, but there was a time when I lived in Florida where I really, and honestly, like I would still consider it, but I would be very picky about where I went. I really wanted to like underwater like cave dive at like the Florida Springs
movies,
and stuff. Yeah.
movies have
Um
made me think I'm gonna swim through without any issues and find treasure.
yeah. I would still honestly do it if I had the money, but I would have to get like a specific map and know that there's nowhere where like it gets super tight. I do like the super like easy ones,
Yes,
unless I
I will
eventually
go
felt
with
more
you.
comfortable, but yes.
Especially if you could have some sort of gear that would help you, like
Yeah.
some flippers if it's short enough, or but it's just like the is it Weechi Wachi? Wishy
Wiki
something like
watchy.
that in Wiki Wachi mermaids. They used to
Yeah.
dive in and hold their breath to get into that pool through, I think it was a 15-foot long tunnel. So
Yep.
if they can do it, we can do it. And
Yep.
I mean, for you, a 15-foot tunnel, that's like 2.5 body lengths.
Shut up.
I'm just being honest, my dude. You just do a good push off and get your streamline going, you're fine.
True. True, you're right.
I'm just I just
Maybe I
believe in
should have been a
you.
mermaid.
Yes, look at your hair. I also should have been a mermaid.
True. Let's go be mermaids together.
You should put that picture of me playing mermaids in the pool on this post. No, please don't. No, it's a funny picture. That's a great picture. Anyways, Haley and
It
I love to
is.
swim together.
Okay, so either way you go, the paths, they all lead to a dead end, and the only way in and out of this cave system is through the opening at the top of the hill.
No,
So, yeah, that's like the scariest thing to me. Like you have to turn
that
around
I just
and
the turning around part isn't even that scary. It's the fact that the original drop is 15 feet, so you have to climb out.
well, I think they use like equipment to get down. It's not like just free climbing.
Yeah, but even then, going up, like you still have to use. It's a lot of strength.
Yeah. To me, it's like the further you go in, the tighter it gets. So turning around gets harder and harder the further you go. So,
Oh, true. True. Ooh.
yeah.
Okay. Me no like. No thanks. Just the idea of being stuck anywhere like that without being able to get
Mhm.
back is very
Mhm.
like, whether it be like in a car in like the snow, you get covered in anything where it's like you don't know if you're going to be able to get out or not. No thanks.
Yeah. Yep. So the cave system gained popularity in the later decades of the 20th century because it was relatively easy to access and it offered a challenge once you got in there to more experienced divers. So after the 15-foot drop, it's mostly surrounded by like easier things for beginners to explore. But as I said, as you go further in, it can be more challenging for people looking for a challenge. So it brought everybody, basically.
Right. Kind of like Mount Everest.
Yes. Brandon Kowalis, a speleologist who surveyed Nutty Putty, said it's like someone who specializes in caves and caving and like stuff like that.
That's such a fun word, but also like speleologist?
Yeah.
What? It should have been like
Caving caving
caveologist.
caving is also called spelunking, so it makes sense that it would be a
Oh, that's
speleologist.
I was like, why does that make sense but also confuse me? Thank you.
Yes. So Brandon, he said, quote, "The majority of it is not something you're going to get stuck in, but there are some spots, some nooks and crannies where people might try to challenge themselves by trying to squeeze through." And by the early 2000s, officials at the School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, who own and manage the cave and the surrounding area, they started getting nervous about the number of people that were traveling to Utah specifically to visit the cave. There were thousands of people visiting every year, some with very little experience, and the cave is way too challenging for that. So, the trust turned over management to the Timpanogos Grotto, which is a local chapter of the National Speleological Society. I thought I was going to struggle to say that word.
You did really good, and I really like that word too. Speleological.
Yes. So, this group organizes expeditions like Everest, the
Mm-hmm.
what we talked about before, but they organize them with experienced professionals to guide you. And by handing off the management to the grotto, the land trust was hoping to avoid accidents involving cavers who weren't experienced enough to traverse the Nutty Putty Cave without a guide. But even with everything that has been put into place to help guide people with proper preparation, going into the cave can obviously still be dangerous.
Mm-hmm. I have a question. You might answer
Okay.
it or say it, but the reason it got the name was because of the texture of that clay. Was the
Yes.
clay on the walls or on the floor or like
It was
everywhere?
just surrounding. Like anybody who went through comes out covered in clay.
So it was probably kind of slippery and maybe even like sticky.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
giving Magic School Bus Goes Inside of the Body episode.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
That's a good, yep. So before we get into the death of John Jones, let's talk about some rescues that happened. Not all of them happened in this specific cave, but I feel like they really put into perspective how treacherous this kind of thing can be. In August of 2004, 16-year-old Brock Clark was spelunking with friends in Nutty Putty, and he got stuck in an upside down position. It was it was a Friday night when he and his friends entered the cave, and they were planning on spending a few hours there before returning home. When they got to the entrance of the birth canal, or what they thought was the birth canal, Brock entered headfirst into the opening and was trying to lead his friends into the next chamber. But it's dark in there, and he went the wrong way somewhere, and because of this, Brock was taken off course and ended up getting wedged into a small crevice that wasn't the birth canal at a very downward angle.
Crevasse.
Crevasse.
The birth canal crevasse. Come on.
um, when he realized he'd made a mistake, he panicked and tried to twist and wriggle his way free, but that wedged him even tighter, and his left leg ended up being pinned behind him somehow. Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was a no. Ow.
Mm-hmm. So once his friends realized that Brock wouldn't be able to get out of this spot by himself, one of his friends stayed behind to keep him company while the others went to get help. His friends returned with sheriffs and rescuers around 6 p.m., and it took a little while to get back to the area where Brock was. Hours later, they were still trying to slowly free him from the space he'd gotten wedged into. So he's stuck upside down,
That's
and that's so dangerous. Like I have info on what that will do, and you probably know, but
yeah. I
um
was my first thought is compartment syndrome.
mhm. So a representative from the sheriff's office told reporters, quote, "Brock did as much shimmying as he could, but it was taking hours and hours of gently and slowly pushing and pulling and trying to coach him and doing everything they could to get him out before he was finally freed in the early morning hours." So he'd been stuck upside down, blood rushing to his head with his leg pinned behind him for over 12 hours. And
No. The idea of being stuck in a position, regardless of how you got there, that's that painful.
yeah.
That is a nightmare to me. Like
Mhm.
you know when you're in pain and you just want it to go away, but there's
And
nothing
you
you
want
can
to
do?
like
Like, that's a whole different, like, nothing you can do scenario.
I was inspired to do this episode because Morbid just came out with an episode about this, and one of the hosts made a really good point. You know that feeling when you do something and you immediately regret it and you want to like you wish you had the power to just turn back time, but there's nothing you can do. It's the worst
Yeah,
feeling ever.
literally my entire existence. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So,
like, oh, why did I oh my God, why did I do that? But he's like in a really bad why did I do that?
yeah. Yeah. When he was taken from the cave, he was unable to stand or walk without help, and he was also described as extremely fatigued and weak. He ended up needing to be hospitalized, but he luckily survived. And this situation and another a few years earlier that involved two 17-year-olds who were rescued from the same area after 12 hours, but these two, they were on their stomachs, which is still scary, but I feel like being upside down adds like a extra level of like
Definitely.
danger.
So
Um
their feet were dangling in that case?
they were on their
Because if
stomachs, so
you're
they were just
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to picture it because if it's a downward angle and he was like head down, how were they? What do you mean they were on their stomachs?
so the way that they were going, it was like not necessarily a straight across, but it wasn't like a 70-degree angle like he was, but it was more like
Oh,
maybe
it
like
wasn't the
this.
same spot.
No, it was in the same general
Okay,
area. Yeah.
that clears it up. Okay, okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
Um, you're good. So Brock's situation and the situation with these two 17-year-olds, it earned this particular section of Nutty Putty the name the Scout Eater.
Okay, that's kind of sick and twisted, but like cool.
Okay, so the next story. On September 29th, 1984, 29-year-old Peter Verhalzel, I don't know if I pronounced it right, but him and his friends went exploring in the Sterkfontein caves in South Africa. It was 1984, and the caving equipment wasn't quite what it is today, but they were all experienced divers and cavers, and they had the proper equipment of the day to be going into the cave system. The route through the caves is marked by a guideline that people can follow along the main path to the exit, but Peter kept trying to go down unmarked side paths that were closed off to the public. The first two times he did this, his friends were able to find him, but the third time he did this, he went a little too far, swimming through a series of small tunnels until he found himself in a cavern with no idea how to get back. Yeah.
Why are you doing that, Peter?
Uh, he just assumed that
I
his friends would always
understand,
be able to find him, I guess, but still, like, don't.
but why would you go alone? Like, I mean, I'm glad you didn't get your friends in the predicament, but like, I don't know. I just feel like the buddy system goes for like everything.
I agree. So his friends, they searched for as long as they could, but they eventually started running out of oxygen because they'd only brought enough for a short dive, and they didn't think that they'd have to be going off to save their friend every few minutes, you know? So they continued.
Sounds like Everest again. Whether you're climbing to the top of the earth or going underneath of it, be
Uh-huh.
careful with your oxygen supplies and don't
Yeah,
be an asshole. Like, oh,
right. So they continued to search as long as they could, but after a while it was too risky because they didn't know exactly where he'd gone. Peter had found a small island in the flooded cavern and stayed there waiting for rescue. Divers scoured the area regularly for weeks. A spokesman said, quote, "We were sure he had drowned. Now it seems he was alive, but he could not hear our divers, and they could not hear him as they passed within 40 yards of where he was."
oh my God.
So, yeah. Peter's body was found next to his diving equipment 6 weeks later. He starved to death.
Jesus
And
Christ.
yeah,
What a way to go
they
after you're like, if he drowned, I feel like that's still sad, obviously. It's we don't want him to die, but at least it like makes sense for where you are. But I don't mean this in like a mean way to a deceased person, but you were just dumb enough to go somewhere that you shouldn't have, and then it ended up in you starving to death.
yeah, that's so brutal.
Oh, that's so
But
sad.
they also found a message to his wife and his mom written in the sand next to him, and it said, "I love you, Cheryl and Ma." And I
Peter.
know, it's really sad.
Peter. Oh my God. I'm sorry.
A spokesman also said, quote, "It must have been cold and lonely and utterly dark down there. He must have known the end was coming since he left that message for his wife and mother." And an autopsy indicated that it took him 3 weeks to starve to death.
Yeah. What do they
In the
say?
dark,
3
alone.
minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. Oh,
That's
and
so,
alone and in the dark with no hope.
yeah,
Honestly, after probably a week, I would probably try to just end it myself
yeah. I wonder if he
because
tried, but was like,
yeah, he might have been brave and thought like tried to wait, but the starvation would be physically painful and mentally, but just the loneliness and the utter and he had to have been
dark?
cold
Yeah.
and the darkness and just existing, the insanity. It's like the studies they do on people who are put in solitary confinement,
Mm-hmm.
but at least there you
Yep,
get fed, so it's like, oh my God, that's so sad. Ooh,
it is.
barf.
So I have one more story and then we'll get into the incident. Um,
Okay.
so in 2005, 5 friends decided at 2 a.m. they'd attempt to find a secret cave in Provo, Utah, high up in the mountain close to the famous Y Mountain, which is also referred to as the Cave of Death or the Golem Cave.
Yeah,
If I don't
let's go find it, guys.
know, if someone was like, "Hey,
No,
you want to go to the Cave of Death?" I'm like, "Nah, thank
I'll
you."
go look at it from a distance, but I'm not getting anywhere near that.
Right. So the cave, which is actually an old mine shaft, which makes it even more unsafe because those can collapse at literally any time.
Yeah, no.
Um, so the cave is covered in water and it's only 4 feet tall, making it more of a crawl space. The entrance is an 18 by 20-inch water-filled tunnel that goes 15 feet from the opening to the actual cave.
18 by 20 inches?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a foot and a half by 4 inches under 2 feet. How did they even fit? Well, we'll find out, but what? I don't understand. I
They
don't understand.
places in Nutty Putty are tighter than that, and people go through there. So
I don't understand. Oh God.
I don't either. So one of the friends had explored this cave before. Her name was Jennifer Galbraith. She was 21 years old. And she convinced her friends to go into the cave with her, and she assured them that they'd be able to hold their breath and make it to the other side without issue. It's weird to me because she was confident, despite the fact that when she had gone into the cave before, she got hypothermia and passed out. But she's like, "Yeah, you're fine." I don't know.
Jennifer? That's her name, right? Jennifer?
Yeah.
Jennifer, are you okay, my dear? Because
I mean, she's,
what?
yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, but at that moment, was she trying to impress them, trying to be cool, wanted to prove that she could do it without that happening again?
Probably a
What
little
was
bit
the
of
thought
everything.
process? Yeah.
Yeah. So 24-year-old Blake Donner, 28-year-old Scott McDonald, and 18-year-old Ariel Singer followed her into the cave while the fifth friend decided to stay behind and wait for them to return. And remember, they decided to do this around 2 a.m. But by
Oh my God.
6:25,
It's dark. 2 a.m.?
yeah.
That's no. And I'm sorry, I'm a little superstitious. You know what comes after 2 a.m.? 3 a.m. You know what 3 a.m. is? The
Hmm.
witching hour. You know what the
Yep.
witching hour, what you shouldn't do at the witching hour? Be in a cave called the Death Cave or the Cave of Death. I'm that fifth friend who's like, I'll be guard. I
Yeah.
wouldn't fit through the fucking hole. Jeez, my
I don't think
shoulder,
I would
even my
either, honestly.
I'm a big girl. Even if I lost a bunch of weight, my shoulders would not fit through there.
Mm-hmm.
Like how? What? They must have been very small people.
Well, it's like it's really hard for people to fit through tunnels like this. They literally have to like suck in their stomachs and like twist and pull. It's not just like sliding through.
Yeah,
So,
but even then, like twisting and pulling, how are you gonna pull if you can't? There's not even enough room to bend your arms. You're pulling with your little fingies. Like
yeah.
I don't know. No, no.
Yeah.
I'm a slithery little snaky snake. That's the only way you can get through. Oh, I'm sorry. This is blowing my mind right now, and I'm
I
sorry. I
know.
keep saying I'm sorry.
You're fine. So by 6:25 a.m., nobody from the group had returned, and the fifth friend called for help. It's not known for sure what happened, but I have two theories here. There might be more, but these are the two I found. There was a rope underwater that led from the entrance to the cave opening, and they're not sure if they used the rope. If they didn't, they could have easily missed the cave opening, gotten disoriented, and drowned as a result. A previous caver stated that he'd gone in without using the rope, and he ended up at a dead end of rocks. He'd missed the cave opening. He had to frantically push himself backwards through this tiny tunnel until he got to the entrance, but he nearly died.
Because it's
So
filled
that's
with fucking water.
yeah.
No, no.
Yep. So another thing that could have happened is the four friends could have made it to the opening of the cave, but died due to the high percentage of nitrogen underground. There would have been only like 20.9% of oxygen, which would have been used up quickly once the group exited the water, replacing any good air with carbon dioxide, and they quickly would have become short of breath and really disoriented, making it even harder for them to complete their swim back out to the entrance.
Right, and like maybe one person it would be easier because you won't use as much oxygen, but as soon as you come out of that water, you know what you're gonna do is take a deep breath. And
Yeah.
I'm sure none of them were prepared to monitor and like stifle their breathing to try to conserve oxygen. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
god. Oh my god.
So either way, the narrow 15-foot tunnel to and from the entrance could not fit more than one person at a time. So it's extremely likely that each friend likely got into the water or turned around expecting to be able to get through to the exit, but instead ran into a blockage as each friend ran out of breath and drowned before reaching the exit. This would explain why all of them were found facing the same direction, one after another, all facing the exit.
Oh.
Right?
Cave cave underwater human centipede.
Yeah.
That's what
So if
came to
they're
my
facing
mind.
the exit, I think they probably made it to the opening on the other side and they came back. Because how would they have turned around? You know?
Right. Yeah, they must have made it there. That's the one that makes the most sense if they're all facing the same direction, especially if
Right.
that person you spoke about ran into a blockage because he followed the tunnel farther than the entrance. I again, I'm not trying to insult deceased people, but that one girl, if she had already been in there, why did she kind of like encourage her friends to do this in an even more dangerous way than it already was?
Well, it's just like, it's kind of the same with Everest. People really love like challenging themselves and adventuring in different ways. And it's like, I would never do this, you would never do this, but there's things that I'm sure we would love to do that other people are like, why? You know?
Right.
It
Yeah,
just
you're
doesn't
right.
make
And I really, yeah, I really don't want to sound like I'm passing any judgment
No,
because
I don't think
people,
so.
especially when I was younger, like some crazy things, but it's like I just the thought of trying to escape and then not being able to because someone is blocking your way like would not only scare me but would infuriate me because I can't
And
even
then
stand
trying
walking
to,
behind people
I wonder if
that are
like,
walking too slow.
sorry for cutting you off. Um,
No, you're good.
I just think of like maybe like the first friend didn't make it all the way, and then one of them noticed this and tried to like back up, but couldn't because someone else was coming, and then it was just like a domino effect.
They all just drowned together. Oh my
Be so
fucking
fucking
God.
scary.
Oh my God. And being that fifth friend, and I'm sorry. And again, I keep saying I'm sorry, and I don't mean this insultingly. It's just a question. I don't know what I would do in this circumstance, but if they started at 2 a.m., got there at 2 a.m., say entered the cave between 2:30 and 3, and it's almost 6:30 in the morning when she finally calls, like, why were your friends down there for 3 hours? She couldn't have done anything, but it's like, I want to know these people's thought processes, which.
Well, I don't think it's not just like a tiny room that they would have come into. It's like something they could have explored. So they probably planned on being in there for a while.
Okay, but they didn't know about the 20.9%
Right.
oxygen or anything, obviously, because they wouldn't have. They were
Exactly.
just kids, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, I was picturing it as much smaller because of
I could
the
be
small
wrong, but I
entrance.
feel like it's probably a lot larger and has a lot to be explored.
Yeah. And because the friend had already done it, but she passed out and like whatever, maybe she
Yeah.
didn't remember or actually know what it looked like in there. So maybe
Right.
it was the blind leading the blind.
Yeah. That's what it seems like. So, rescuers had to pump water out of the tunnel and pump oxygen into it before they could even attempt to recover the bodies. And the cave was sealed shut shortly after, and a plaque dedicated to the four friends was hung on the piece of cement used to seal the cave.
I feel like all mine shafts, as soon as they're done using them, should be sealed.
Oh, totally. I agree.
Just as like a general rule, because as soon as you started the story and we're like, oh, but it was actually a mine shaft, my brain was like, fuck, that's way worse.
Yep.
A mine shaft is normally man-made. So like a
Yep.
cave, the earth built that. And like if you think about like animals or insects like a spider, I know you don't love spiders, but like spider webs are perfect for spiders because that's what they were built to do in nature. Caves are there and are probably more sturdy, built by the earth than holes dug into the earth where they shouldn't be by man. So it's just like, don't go in abandoned mine shafts, please. Just
Yeah.
don't dive into any holes in the earth, period, unless you're prepared.
I want to say don't do it, but I know that a lot of people really get a lot of joy out of doing stuff like this. So, like, have your experience, but make sure you are as safe as you can possibly be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mine shafts, though, we can just stay out of them.
Yeah, probably. It's
Do
for the
I
best.
feel like right, like Earth, like naturally made caves are probably cooler, anyways.
Yeah, agreed. So I just have like a few sentences about each of the friends. I tried to find something about Peter, the guy we talked about in the last story, but I couldn't find anything. Jennifer's father said he will always remember her as a fun loving kid who loved adventuring with her friends. He takes comfort in knowing she was doing something she loved and she was with her friends. And he said it just went bad.
R.I.P. Jennifer.
Blake, who was Jennifer's boyfriend, his friend described him as an artist, writer, and singer in a rock band called Parallax. And all of the rest of the four friends were in the same band together. He was a student at Utah Valley State College and involved in the Food Not Bombs charity organization. So he seems cool.
R.I.P.
Um,
Blake.
Scott was passionate about politics and music. He was an avid hiker and swimmer and yearned to explore the majestic mountains around him. He always believed in taking personal accountability. He was a cool operator, never getting angry or flustered. He enjoyed the simple things in life, shunning unnecessary modern conveniences.
R.I.P. Scott. You sounded like a
Yes.
badass.
And Ariel Singer, the 18-year-old, I had such a hard time finding anything about her, which I didn't understand because it was so easy to find stuff about the other three. Anyways,
Maybe it was because she was
she
younger.
maybe
Like everything
um
else would have been like private because she was a minor. And if
yeah,
she
that's
wasn't an
true.
adult for very long, yeah.
Yeah. So Ariel loved to sing, dance, hike, and cook, and she had graduated from high school early, and she had plans of becoming a chef.
R.I.P. Ariel. I bet your food would have been bomb.
And Jennifer and Ariel were both beautiful people, like in the face.
Beautiful in the face. And you'll
Yes.
probably be sharing pictures of them, I assume.
Yeah, I could. I'll probably make like a collage of all their photos.
Okay.
You want to get into the incident?
Yeah, let's get into it.
So, the death of John Edward Jones. In 2009, 26-year-old medical student John Jones was visiting his family in Utah with his pregnant wife Emily and their 1-year-old daughter Lizzie for Thanksgiving. The
I
day
don't
before
like
the
this.
holiday, I know. So, the day before the holiday, he and some family members decided to explore the Nutty Putty Cave. He hadn't been to this particular cave before, but he and his brother Josh spent a lot of time caving in a variety of other Utah caves. And his father, he also took them caving frequently when they were kids. So he had a lot of experience.
Okay.
He considered himself to be an experienced caver, though as his family was growing and he was in school, his exploring had slowed in recent years. Nutty Putty had just recently been opened back up to the public after being closed for several years because of previous incidents, as I said before, of cavers getting trapped and needing to be rescued. Because of these incidents, a new permit-style entry was required, listing 2 experienced cavers per group. Josh, John's brother, had gotten a permit for their group to explore the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And John's pregnant wife, Emily, she decided to stay behind with her daughter to spend time with her in-laws, and she was pregnant. I feel like she probably couldn't have fit through the
Yeah, or even if she could, it just wouldn't have been like a safe thing to do because of all of like
Yeah,
the
exactly.
crawling and being on your belly and stuff.
Yeah. So the group of 11 started off in the main open cave sections, and eventually John and his brother Josh took 2 friends off to find more challenging tunnels to try. They'd heard stories about the birth canal and had looked at the map for its location. It was known to be a long, tight passage with a particularly tight squeeze at the end. If you got past that, there would be a small room at the end to stand up and turn around. They were aware that the
Again,
birth canal.
I don't
I would
know.
call it a
Just like it's
room.
not a room. What?
I would call it a room.
Well, I mean, there's not. I totally get it. There's not really like what else are you supposed to call it? Like
Right.
another cave within the cave. Like, but it's just strange to me. I don't know why.
Yeah. So they were
Sick.
aware that the birth canal would be tight and could be panic inducing, even for experienced cavers like themselves. So John, Josh, and the 2 friends decided to spread out in hopes of finding this particular tunnel. John and Josh took the passage on the left called the corkscrew. It moved up and down in several elevations for the next 15 feet. There were outcroppings of rocks and tight squeezes that required a caver to twist their body in several ways to get their shoulders, hips, and legs past. There's a map of this cave system, and it's just like really sharp turns, like up and down.
Yeah, and I'm picturing because they said corkscrew, and then so I was thinking up and down, but when they said up and down in elevation, I'm picturing like very zigzaggy, and I'm like, how tall were these people? Because for it to zig and zag that much within 15 feet, like you're inchworming through there, but if you have to twist and turn, like how do you know what part of your body is where?
Well, I know John is he was 6 foot and about 200 pounds. I don't know about Josh or the 2 other friends, but
But if it's 6 feet and it zigs and or 6 feet, 15 feet and it zigs and zags, he's almost half as tall as the distance. So at some
yeah,
point, part of his body's going up and the other's going down or whatever. So it just sounds very difficult.
yeah, time consuming. So this area was called the corkscrew because the few who had been through it were small and flexible, using all their skills to maneuver slowly through the panic-inducing contortions. After this corkscrew area, the passage angles up for another 5 feet or so, then turns down over a rock ledge with a sharp 90-degree bend to the left. Up until now, cavers had used this small area after the corkscrew to turn around.
What? Weird. Part of
Right?
me is like, did this form naturally? Like, obviously it was formed naturally. did this happen due to erosion and the way the earth, like, for lack of a better word, grew? Or was there something at some point in history that this was their home and, like, they made those cave systems? Because if you think about ants and the way they make their burrows or whatever, or any
Yeah.
animal that burrows, it's always, like, twisty and turny, so was it I'm just picturing the giant Alaskan bullworm from SpongeBob.
I think this is the second time we've talked about that on this show.
Probably. I love a good SpongeBob reference.
5 years before is when 16-year-old Brock Clark had gotten stuck in this corkscrew section. Brock was 5'7" and he weighed 140 pounds. John was in the exact same spot where Brock had gotten stuck. And like I said, John was 6 feet and 200 pounds. So he knew that turning around in this part of the tunnel was not an option for him because the space he was in was only 12 inches high.
No. And you're 6 foot and 200 pounds. Like, I don't understand. Like, you really got to squeeze. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's cool that during the time that it was closed after the incidents, that they kind of took the time to, like, explorers or whoever, like professionals, took the time to map it out when previously they didn't know what that was called, and Brock just ended up there.
Yeah.
And, like, to find out that it's got a name and what it is and, like, how he got stuck there is interesting, but wow.
Yeah, definitely. And even like at the time that John was at the cave, it was like there was a map of it, but it was like very poorly mapped. John decided to push forward to the ledge area and he squeezed over top of it. It was super tight to get through, but he thought he could see a spot down below that was open enough for him to turn around. He sucked in his stomach and pressed himself through, pulling forward on the rocks in front of him. Now he was moving headfirst in a downwards angle, but pushed forward thinking he'd be able to turn around. John didn't know it, but nobody else had ever crossed over the ledge he had just squeezed past, and he was in completely unchartered territory.
Oh
Yeah.
god.
So despite being in an extremely tight and uncomfortable position, John remained calm. He was certain that there'd be an opening ahead. At this time, he thought he was in some part of the birth canal where he expected to feel the way he was feeling at this time. He was nervous and just like panicking a little bit. But in his mind, he was like, okay, if I just get to the end of this, it'll open up and I'll be able to turn around. So eventually he passed through a particularly tight spot and he started to slide toward the bottom of this tunnel, nearly doing a handstand trying to hold his body up and figure out how to push backwards. And he
Oh my
still was,
fucking god.
right? He
No.
still could not turn, and now he was upside down.
Doing a handstand. Do you, like, how do
Yep.
you get yourself back up? Like, you
I have no idea. So he
especially
yelled out
after
to
all the
his...
physical labor you just did.
Exactly, exactly. And he's already exhausted at this point.
Right.
So he yelled out to his brother Josh and told him not to follow him and to go back out. They discussed his options and decided that moving forward to getting to a spot to turn around was the best idea. He was already collapsing onto his shoulders and head at this point and needed to get out of this position. His headlamp gave him a look at a hole in the floor ahead, which he thought might be a larger space. He felt hopeful at this point, thinking they'd be laughing about this misadventure over Thanksgiving dinner, because Thanksgiving was the very next day, keep that in mind, which is wild because Thanksgiving is like a few days from now, so this is like pretty close to the anniversary.
Yeah.
He made a slight turn and headed towards the hole ahead. It's unknown how exactly he got himself inside. He might have slipped, hit his head, and gotten wedged in the tight space. He also may have looked inside and misjudged what he saw, thinking it was an opening and not a dead-end fissure. Either way, he ended up in a small opening in the bottom of the tunnel, which was impossibly narrow. It was 18 by 10 inches, not much bigger than the screen of a laptop computer.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm trying to imagine myself trying to jump through my laptop screen right now. No.
No, it's like, no. You'd have
Barely
to
my
just
head.
like, yeah, right?
No. No.
Mm-hmm.
Because how are you going to move? Like, other than wiggling, but at that point, like, it would be so hard to wiggle. And I'm just thinking,
Mm-hmm.
like, even my shoulders. I wish I had a measuring tape. Actually, I think I do. Okay, so people who are listening, obviously you can't see this, but people who are watching.
I could make this a clip.
True. This is 10 inches right here. From the end of this gold to right here where my finger is. That's, even if I'm scrunched, that's how much of my body I can get through. If the hole is 18 inches wide,
Yeah.
that still leaves at least an inch of my shoulders. Maybe if I'm scrunched, I'm gonna get stuck in my arms. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand.
I don't
I
either.
do, I know he didn't mean to. I'm not saying that. I just, like,
No, it's just
thinking about
mind-boggling.
it is
It's so hard
exactly.
to wrap your brain around.
Mm-hmm.
So John was wedged nearly completely upside down, and he spent a bit of time trying to push himself backwards out of the fissure, but it was exhausting and unsuccessful. His arms were pinned in a useless position, one folded under his chest and another trapped on a rock by his side.
And that's worse than, like, to me that seems worse than having both your hands across your chest where you can, like, touch your own hands and, like, try to do
Mm-hmm.
something, but when they're not close for some reason, in my head that sounds even more difficult.
Having no use of your no, no,
No.
no.
No, that's what I'm talking about with, like, the being held down thing. No thanks.
This the way that he I know already the way that he died is like the worst death that I have ever heard, if I'm being honest.
Oh god. Oh
It's
god.
so
All right. Give it to me, Papa. That wasn't meant to be.
so his arms were pinned. His calves and feet were still free up in the passage above him, but his legs were wedged on the smallest side of the hole, which was only 8 inches wide. Yeah.
No. Mm-mm. Both of his legs, and this man was 6 foot 200.
Mm-hmm.
Ow.
Yeah.
After just a few minutes, the amount of circulation that would be cutting off.
Mm-hmm.
So you wouldn't even be able to feel your fucking feet at that point. So what? No.
I can't. Ugh.
That's all I can
I
say
feel
is
for him.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was after he tried to free himself on his own and realized he couldn't, he started yelling for his brother Josh, and Josh knew he was trying to turn around. So hearing his brother yell was immediately like it terrified him, and he said initially he also thought it was going to be the beginning of another family adventure story, because I guess their father had briefly gotten stuck between two rocks when they were children, and it was something that was brought up every year as like a crazy story, and they thought that's what this was going to be. But
Right.
hearing his brother yell, he was like, "Oh fuck, like something's really wrong."
Mm-hmm.
So Josh made his way back into the tight space and traversed the corkscrew path, but unlike John, he went feet first. He followed his brother's voice up over the ledge, and what he saw was alarming. He said, quote,
Oh god.
seeing his feet and seeing how swallowed he was by rock, that's when I knew it was serious. It was really serious. Swallowed by rock. That
That's
gets me.
terrifying.
Yeah.
Mm.
So Josh inched forward until his feet could squeeze one of John's legs. He tried to grip and pull up while John pushed from his end. Which how does he push? I feel like because his arms are pinned, it'd be so hard to do that.
Just like
Right. Just like
I don't even know.
Like pull yourself in a little, I guess. I don't know.
God, they needed so much butter.
Yeah.
Like, I know that's kind of funny, but like something to help him be more slick.
During the rescue operation, they actually ordered like a shit ton of like canola oil and or olive oil or some kind of
Crisco
oil.
or something.
Yeah, something like that. And they tried that because they were super desperate. After several attempts, they were both exhausted and frustrated. Josh could see that this was extremely serious and that they would need professional help to get him out. They agreed that Josh would go get help and that John would try as much as possible to stay calm and relaxed. Okay, so while Josh went for help, one of the other people in their group went into the area to talk to John and keep him company. John remained trapped upside down for over an hour, focused mostly on his labored breathing. The fissure was squeezing his chest, so only shallow breaths were possible. All of his effort to escape had actually settled him deeper into the crack, and as time went on, gravity continued to pull him down against the rough walls of the tunnel.
Oh my God. It's really like swallowing him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And like when you're, especially because he's upside down, all of his blood is flowing towards his brain, which also makes it harder to just function. And then when you're upside down, your body and when you're breathing shallow, you're squeezed like that, his heart's not able to pump blood to his extremities the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So the physical agony he must have been in, oh my God, that
And the
poor
panic.
guy.
Yeah.
Right. And then you panic, and it's like adrenaline is not good in that
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Exactly. So after Josh knew help was on the way, he headed back down to take their friend's place next to John. The two brothers made small talk to take their minds off of what was happening. They talked about Josh's girlfriend, whether he should follow John to medical school, which, by the way, John was studying to be a pediatric cardiologist. Right? He seems like such a cool guy.
I feel bad. Sometimes I feel bad that we're doing YouTube now because I just respond to you in facial expressions. For anyone who's listening and not watching, I made a very big frown because this man sounds like a wonderful person, and he did not deserve this.
No, not
How
at all.
dare the earth swallow him up like that? Like, seriously though.
I know. I agree. So they talked about Josh's girlfriend, whether Josh should follow John to medical school. They sang hymns and prayed together because they were both devout Mormons. After nearly an hour, Josh heard rescuers were at the cave's entrance and he went out to find them. Okay, so Josh said, I didn't want to leave him. His life was in that cave, in that little crack. John assured him it was okay for him to leave. He said, go get him, brother.
Oh.
So, I know.
I'm gonna sob. Sibling stories hit me extra hard.
Yeah, if it was like Madison or Linda or you there, I would be like, where's the closest spot that I can sit where I won't be in the way of the rescuers, where I can still talk to this person because I don't want to leave.
And like me, I was just like picturing it being you, and like when like go get him, brother, and just like the absolute amount of laughter that would bring us at such a terrible point. Like,
right.
I gotta stop picturing anyone, you, Chloe, Megan, who I gotta stop picturing all these people in that crack.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first rescuer that was able to reach John, her name was Susie Matola. It was now 12:30 a.m. and John had been upside down for 3 hours. Susie was 5'3", so working her way through the corkscrew wasn't an easy thing to do, but it was a lot easier for her. Ropes had also been tied to her ankles just in case she got stuck so she'd be able to be pulled out. And when she got to John, she checked on him and let him know that they would be getting him out. And she said, "Hi, John. My name is Susie. How's it going?" And John responded, "Hi, Susie. Thanks for coming, but I really, really want to get out." And that it's just like I really, really want to get out of here. Like, he's just like,
And
help.
he was being so polite. He wasn't like, shut the fuck up with the small talk, Susie. He was like, hi, Susie,
Yeah.
help.
He's like that up until the end.
Yeah. Which you couldn't blame him if he did get angry.
Oh, totally. But like,
right.
He's just a sweetheart. So Susie tied webbing straps around his legs and then fed it back to the pit, the pit is right at the end of the corkscrew area. Several attempts were made to pull on the ropes to leverage John back up and out of the fissure. But because the corkscrew area is so twisty and like there's so many sharp areas, there was too much friction, so they weren't able to get him out. Yeah, so there was too much friction, and John was still pinned without the use of his arms, so he couldn't fully assist. And after a few attempts, Susie stretched a water bottle down to his right arm that was pinned behind him, so he could tip it forward and like try to catch some water to drink because it was so tight. He couldn't make eye contact with anybody. I'm sure he felt just like totally alone. So
I'm amazed she was even able to get a water bottle down to him at that point. Like, she probably hurt herself a little bit doing that.
Probably. These rescuers are just amazing, all of them. So she did that, and she cut off part of the bottom of his jeans to try to free up a few inches. And while she was doing it, she even joked that she'd have a story to tell his wife when she came back out. And she also asked him if he wanted to get pancakes when they got him out.
I love Susie.
Right?
Oh my god.
Right.
Why do you find so much stuff? My heart is breaking. It's like
I have to
shattering in slow motion.
I have to get quotes like from the people that were
there. I know.
Or
it's
else
great,
I don't
but
feel
it's
like I did it justice.
Right. Yeah. And Susie deserves to be highlighted.
Right. So eventually she ran out of things to say, so she started humming a Mormon hymn, and John asked her if she was Mormon, and she explained that she was, but she'd fallen away from the church teachings somewhat in recent years. And John asked if her faith was strong, and he also asked if she planned to be married in a church, which I'm not a religious person, but I think it's really cool that he found something that was so helpful for him, you know?
They were able to connect on something to continue the conversation and kind of find some sort of comfort.
Yeah. So she said, quote, he was 100% right on there with his religion. I wasn't. It was kind of like a big brother saying, come on now, shipshape.
Oh, John!
So as the two of them spoke more, she noticed that his voice was growing more nasal and his breathing was labored. She could hear that his lungs were filling with liquid, which will happen as you're upside down for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
After about 2 hours, Susie was exhausted and crawled out to rest while another rescuer took her place. And after attempting a few things and considering many other options, they decided that they would make a pulley system to help lift John up and out. And a pulley is actually what they used when Brock Clark had gotten stuck, just a little bit shorter behind where John was 5 years before. Mm-hmm. But the spot John was trapped in was extremely difficult to work in. Each piece of equipment would need to be brought in from the entrance, and it took nearly an hour to reach the other side of the corkscrew. Because the tunnel was extremely tight, only smaller power tools could be carried in and out. Only one person could be in there to assist at a time, and they would need to be small or wiry to effectively move through the passage. So each pulley took an extraordinary amount of time to install. During this time, cavers were trying to talk with John and comfort him. John spent the night upside down and was showing signs of the physical limitations of the body to withstand this position. The human body isn't built to be upside down for long. The entire circulatory system is designed using pulse, and you can tell me if this is wrong. I got this from a YouTube video. It might be a little but The entire circulatory system is designed using pulses of pressure from the heart to move blood forward through the system, while valves and fibrous vessels would hold blood and stop it from going backwards. This one-way flow balances pressure, gravity, and valves to keep oxygen available to all tissues and to remove toxins from the body through the kidneys.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
You're basically the heart, when your heart beats, it pumps blood in and then out. So it, oxygenated blood goes from, let me go to my anatomy. No, I'm not going to start there because I could be wrong. But anyways, the heart pumps, and the reason it beats and we hear that is because it's a pump from the heart, and that pushes the blood out to the other parts of the body that need it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are valves and such that work in our circulatory system to pump the blood back to the lungs and to the heart to be reoxygenated and recirculated.
Right.
So it's basically, that's why they call it the circulatory system. So when you're upside down, because we were evolutionarily based to be vertical or standing, and not, with our head above our feet, that's how the blood naturally pumps. So when it's going the
Mm-hmm.
other way, it is fighting gravity, which
Yeah.
unfortunately is a very strong force. So you're not able to get the blood to where it needs to go. Plus, the
Mm-hmm.
pressure of everything is constricting those blood vessels, the like the small ones on your skin to the larger ones, and it just starts to fail because your blood's not getting where it needs to go. Therefore, oxygen is not getting where it needs to go.
Correct.
I'm hoping
I mean,
I
yeah.
feel like I repeated what you said, but I'm hoping it kind of like makes it more like understandable for people who might not have that kind of
Right.
knowledge.
Right. So, when rescuers told trauma physician Doug Murdoch that John was nearly upside down, he knew he didn't have much time. And he said, quote, being upside down, your body has to pump the blood out of your brain all the time. Your body isn't set up to do that, and your entire system will start to fail. So, John's body had been fighting gravity for over 12 hours at this point. The brain was not built to withstand this kind of fluid pressure. Fluids were building up in his lungs, and toxins were starting to accumulate from the lack of proper circulation. This part really got me when in the video I watched, but his organs were pressing on his lungs, and each breath was an exhausting effort for muscles not built for such work. His breathing was slowing, and he was completely spent from the effort, which, like, obviously, if you're upside down, your organs are going to press on your lungs, but it never occurred to me that that would happen until I saw, like,
Mm-hmm.
a visualization of it. It's like,
Right.
oh, no, no,
It's
no,
it's
no.
kind of in a way comparative to like pregnant people, because
Mm-hmm.
as the fetus grows inside of the pregnant person, the organs shift, and bodies were made for that, regardless if it's a male or female body at birth, because
Mm-hmm.
our chest and abdomen are set up the same way, where a rib cage is meant to protect the organs from things on the outside. There's nothing
Yeah.
internally that's really working to protect our organs from our other organs. And although you have underneath your lungs, you have your diaphragm that separates the thoracic cavity from your abdomen, where all of your digestive organs are. It's a muscle, but it's not a bone, so it's not
Mm-hmm.
really strong enough to push that away. And especially after 12 hours of not getting
Yeah.
enough oxygen it needs to function.
Oof. It's like torturous, man. Throughout that night, he'd go from being completely calm and lucid to helplessly thrashing his legs and hallucinating. And for the rescuers, it was excruciating to watch. They were helpless, exhausted, and they felt trapped themselves. The air in this cave system was warm and damp. It took a concerted effort to remain calmly breathing when you are restricted and can't move or even breathe properly. But the rescuers knew that if they needed to get out, they could, and John didn't have that option. He couldn't expand his chest to breathe, and the air around him was losing its oxygen concentration little by little.
Well, his body was at the same time.
Yep.
And the idea
This
of him
story,
hallucinating.
every time I reread or like hear the story told, it makes me want to cry.
Honestly, like, me too, because I feel like in a way I feel what he might have been feeling, and I think about how something's bothering me and I complain about it, and most of the time I can fix it, or there's an easy fix that will come quickly, but he's been in this position for hours upon hours and
Mm-hmm.
he can literally do nothing, and like the
Yeah.
helplessness and the idea of him hallucinating breaks my heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when someone has like dementia and they don't understand anymore, that's almost like where he is. He doesn't
Yeah.
understand, so he just does what he thinks he needs to, and I'm assuming when he's thrashing it's not helping anything with him being
Right.
stuck, because movement plus gravity, he's going to keep going down.
Exactly.
It's like the idea of quicksand.
Mm-hmm. Like literally, like you said, being swallowed by the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So when morning came on the 25th, Emily, John's wife, could not wait anymore by the phone. She took her daughter and drove to the cave entrance with John's parents.
I'm sorry,
There,
why
what was she
the
supposed to
daughter?
do?
No, you're right. That's why I didn't say like why, because what was she supposed to do? You're right. I
Yeah,
just like
because it
think
was John.
luckily
It was
being
John's parents too. Like I'm sure they wanted to be there too, so they had to bring the
oh
daughter.
hell
You
yeah.
know?
And she was
Yeah,
only one, so I'm sure it's
yeah,
not a vivid memory, so that's really good, but it's just like, oh my god, that poor wife, but that poor child.
yeah. That whole family. When they all got to the cave entrance, they saw over 100 people gathered around it. They were talking, planning, and waiting amid ambulances, fire trucks, and police SUVs.
Oh
And
my
she said,
Jesus
quote,
fuck.
I know. And there's some footage of the cave entrance during the rescue operation, and there's so much happening. Like, I cannot stress it enough. The people that were trying to rescue him, they did literally everything that they could think of. And it makes me
At this
very sad that
point,
they.
did Emily I'm sorry. Didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
you go. You go.
Um at this point, did Emily know anything, or was she just waiting to hear from them and then drove up and saw all these people and was like, holy shit,
No,
what is happening?
she knew that he was stuck, but
Okay.
she had stayed out of the way. I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, but I think she probably stayed out of the way for a little bit because she probably also thought that it was going to be another like holiday family story, you know.
Mm-hmm. And
And
also,
then
like,
after a
what can
while,
she
she's
do
like,
at
I have to go.
that point?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So she said, quote, I knew I couldn't do anything to help, but I really wanted to give him a hug when he got out. I just imagined him really tired and scared,
Oh my god. She just
right?
wanted to hug her hubby.
I would
Haley.
want to climb down there and even I don't give a fuck if I'm pregnant. I'm going to climb down. No, I do. But like I would want to climb
I'm gonna
down there
kiss his
so
feet.
badly.
Right. No, same. Like thank God his brother was there, so he had someone like in his family with him. But there's something different about that spousal relationship
Mhm.
where it's like, I know if that were Megan, I would feel somewhat comforted if one of her siblings was with her, but I wouldn't feel okay not being there to comfort her myself.
Right. Right.
So like
I agree.
poor fucking Emily.
Right. Ryan Schertz was the one who took over Susie's position next to John. Ryan had been spending time exploring caves since he was 4 years old. He actually I didn't include this part, but he acted. I guess his parent or his dad worked as like a rescue person, or he did at this time as well. But Ryan, when he was younger, he would act as a trapped person for trainings to for the rescuers. So he had a
Oh my
ton of
god.
experience. Yeah. So he was
Wow.
he had been used to tight spaces for his whole life, basically. So when he reached the narrow fissure where John was trapped, he had to fight back tears because of what he saw. It was so alarming. When Ryan arrived, John said, "Help me out. I don't want to be on my head." And Ryan asked him why he was on his head. So John responded, "Why did you guys put me here?" So I think that kind of shows how he was getting like delusional a little bit.
That's the worst part of the whole story, Haley.
Yeah.
Hold on. I gotta take a second.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
That, like, not understanding confusion thing is the most heartbreaking to me. Because the idea of being in, like, a situation and not understanding what is going on and being someone seeing that, like, it's a stupid comparison, but for, like, thinking about, like, someone giving up their dog and the dog doesn't understand, it's like that same, like, thread of, like, he doesn't want to be there. Why did, like, you put him, why he doesn't, oh my God.
Yeah. It's really sad.
It's just really sad. I'm gonna cry a little bit, but I'll be okay.
That's okay. That's okay. I'll be the one
That's
talking,
really sad.
so you can cry it out.
You can sob.
So, are you good to continue? Do you need a second?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I might just sit here and cry still, but
So Ryan attempted to comfort John by loosening the ropes around his legs because there'd been ropes tied around his legs for hours at this point and they were uncomfortable. And Ryan also started rubbing his legs because he wanted to remind him that he wasn't alone in the hole, basically.
Ryan, I'm gonna hug you.
I know.
I don't know when, but I will.
So Ryan stayed with John as the rescue crews created a pulley system. When they finished, the plan was the team would inch John up and Ryan would try to shift John from the 8.5-inch side of the fissure where he was stuck over to the side that was slightly wider. I'm not sure how wide the other side was. I think it was like maybe 10 inches. And this plan was, they thought, their best and only option. During this time, Salt Lake City County crews brought a telecom, a set of 2 radios that transmitted by way of cable line. They strung the line 400 feet from the entrance to John's tunnel. From the entrance to John's tunnel, then gave the speaker to Ryan. Ryan stretched his arm out as far as he could down into the fissure, and he said he was like sobbing at this point, and he held it there. This is gonna make you cry more, I think. Sorry. And he held it there while
you know
Emily
what's
talked.
coming.
He held it there while Emily talked to John through it, and she said, "I love you, just keep fighting." And John cried and started yelling. He said, I love you, tell Lizzie I love her, I'll get out and I'll come see you." I know.
That hopelessness that she must have felt and that he must have felt.
I know.
It's like, it's really good that they got to talk to each other at that moment, but it's also kind of like knowing you can't do anything is like, I don't know.
It's devastating.
It's awful, and
I'm sorry for making you cry, but this story is just like...
It's just thinking about the pain that, like, his wife had to feel, and, like, knowing what it's like to lose people. And, like, it's sad to lose anyone in any scenario, but to kind of be there for it, like, the trauma of that, and, like, I'm sure Lizzie doesn't remember being there very much, but having to know, like, as you get older, that you were there, but you were just little, it's just really sad.
It is.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. It's like a It's a heartbreaking story.
It hits me so hard, thinking about those people's emotions, and just like when I think of something that made me that sad, and that feeling you get inside where it's almost like you've been ripped open and it's just a black hole of emptiness and pain, like. And then she was pregnant with another child, and she had a child to think about, and his parents were there, and his brother was in there with him, and like the guilt that they might have felt, and the friends. And then the poor rescuers are just trying to do their job, and they can't. Like, oh God.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep my glasses off because I'm gonna keep crying, but I'm try to not snuffle too much into the microphone.
Do you need another moment? Do you want
No,
to
I'm okay. I mean, I'm as okay. Yeah. And you know I'm an emotional ass bitch. We are who we are. We're dancing till we're done. We party like num. The only way to cope is with Kesha. That just came out of my mouth. I didn't even realize fully what I said until I like heard it again.
So after he talked to his wife around 4 p.m. on November 25th.
4 p.m.? Holy shit.
At this point, he'd been trapped for a little over 19 hours.
Oh my God. How the fuck he's still conscious at this point? Let alone alive?
Yeah. So rope was strung through nearly 15 tandem pulleys drilled into the wall of the cave. Closest to John, the rope went through a natural arch in the wall, just above the fissure that he was trapped in. Ryan tried to prepare John for what was about to happen. He told him he needed him to push with both hands as they pulled, and his arms were still pinned, so he could do not a lot, but what he could do was helpful. So in the pit, there were 8 people who pulled, and John's body lifted out of the fissure. With each tug, he moved a little further. Then his feet hit the low ceiling, and he screamed because at this point his nerves were so sensitive. Like anything was just like a wave of pain through his body. So when he started screaming, Ryan told the teams to lower him so he could have a minute to rest. And like I said, his legs were just, I don't know how to word it, but he no longer had control of his legs after being upside down for 19 hours. They were completely blue with no discernible pulse. Without his help to delicately bend his knees to the side, they had to consider breaking both his legs to get him back into the passage because time was running out.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And another problem that rescuers were having trouble overcoming was a small lip of rock at the critical bend in the narrow tunnel. John Valentine, who had been a volunteer search and rescue worker for 30 years, said, quote, "It was very agonizing on this particular search. The lip basically captured the center part of his body so that as you pulled up against it, you were pulling against sort of a fish hook. It would hang up just underneath his rib cage against the lip that was in the narrow part of the cave."
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, Jesus Christ.
So after they let John rest for a moment, they tried for a third time. And he was lifted up enough that Ryan was able to make eye contact with him for the first time. And he said, "John, look up at me. How are you doing?" And he said John's face was muddy and his eyes were red from crying, but he wasn't bleeding and his eyes were bright. They were like a vibrant brown. And he said he looked fine besides the mud and the red eyes.
John
And
is a fucking superhuman.
right?
Oh
But
my God.
John said, "It sucks. I'm upside down. I can't believe I'm upside down. My legs are killing me." And that's when they let him back down to rest again. About 20 minutes later, they tried again. John inched upward, and everyone was filled with hope for a few seconds. Then, suddenly, Ryan blacked out. And Ryan is the rescue worker. Yeah. When he came to, he was covered in blood. He saw his jaw. He said his jaw felt broken and his eye was swelling. It turns out, under the pressure of John's, I have chills. Under the pressure of John's body and the pulling, the stone arch had shattered and the rope broke, sending a heavy metal carabiner straight into Ryan's face.
Oh my God.
It's just like another blow. Like they had so much hope, and then it's just like, nope, fuck you.
Like they were so fucking close, but no.
Yeah.
I'm mad. I'm not sad anymore. I'm angry. I'm gonna put
Yeah.
my glasses back on until I cry again.
So, devastatingly, John had slid back into the fissure and landed on his head. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to punch a wall right now.
Mm-hmm. Ryan tried to reassure him as much as he could, but he had trouble speaking because his tongue had been sliced nearly in half by this accident.
And landing on your head, like,
Yeah.
if his neck isn't broken,
Mm-hmm.
like.
So Ryan said, "John, I'm bleeding. I've got to get out, but it's okay. Everything's okay. Someone else will come in with you." So back at the pit, the 8 people that were pulling the rope had crashed to the ground when it went slack. And Susie Matola, the first rescuer, she said it felt like a slap in the face. And Ryan's father, Dave Shirts, was also working. He was also one of the ones pulling the line. He was, of course, worried when he saw the state of Ryan's face. He worried he might have a concussion or a cracked skull. Paramedics assessed the damage on Ryan, and Ryan told his father it was okay to go back into the tunnel, that somebody had to be there with John. So Dave volunteered, and he's the next one who went in.
What? All of these nice men in one place.
Right? They're just trying to get this guy out. That's all they want.
And they're all putting themselves in danger to do it. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a special breed of person. And
Mm-hmm.
I know John's not with it at that point, but if he was, or if I was and that was me, I would just be like, shoot an air embolism into my major artery and just please take me out of my misery and stop trying to rescue me.
Yeah. And
They're
there's
not
like
going to
different.
because that's their job, but
Yeah. And there's like a couple different quotes that I didn't add in because I didn't want to completely copy paste from this article that I'm going to share. But there's one point when they're like in one of the attempts before the accident where they're trying to lift him up. John says something like, I'm sorry, I'm so fat. Like, I'm too heavy to get out of here. I'm so sorry. This is so hard for you guys. And like, I'm just like, you are the one who is stuck. Stop apologizing. They are there for you. Like,
say
man.
that wouldn't be us.
Yeah. I would be like, I'm so fucking sorry.
Yeah.
I should not be in here right now.
I am so sorry to inconvenience you to this level. You should probably just leave me here at this point.
Yeah.
Like,
At this point, I deserve it. Like,
I shouldn't
man.
have climbed into this crevice. It was a silly move. I love you all. Farewell.
Yeah. So when Dave got to John, he asked if John was okay, and John was still conscious. And he said, I'm going to die in here. I'm not going to come out of here, am I? And Dave reassured him that he'd get out. And then John asked about Ryan. He said, is he okay? I think he's got hurt real bad. Then he fell silent and his breathing slowed.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Another Kesha reference. Only the good die young.
Right.
I mean, it's not originally a Kesha reference, but it is. You know what I mean. Later,
yeah,
it comes originally from somewhere else, but.
So while Dave waited for a drill to make a new pulley hole, he tried to wrap a rope around John's waist. He lowered himself into the wider end of the fissure, but it was too tight to work the rope all the way around John. When Dave asked him to suck his stomach in, John was non-responsive at this point. Then Dave realized he was also stuck, and it took him 15 minutes. He got out. It took him 15 minutes to free himself.
But the fear during those 15 minutes of knowing that you are next to an unconscious person who's probably going to die, and that you could be stuck in there with a dead person. Oh, gross.
Yep.
Oh
so, I know. So after Dave was able to free himself, a little while later, the drill finally arrived, and Dave. The article said Dave stood in the crack, but I don't think he stood because he wouldn't have been able to. I think he probably was just like over it, like kind of not. I don't know. He definitely wasn't standing though, but he was drilling right above where John was and struggling in the damp, humid conditions. He tried to put the pulley in, but the hole was too small the first time. The second hole he drilled worked, and he pushed the pulley right in. And after this, he was exhausted from drilling and getting stuck, so he turned around and crawled out. When Dave reached the entrance to the cave, he told Utah County Sheriff's Lieutenant Tom Hodgson, quote, "He's dying right now. He has a heartbeat, but he had difficulty breathing before I even got down there. You can't get someone down there before he dies."
Oh my God.
Yeah. So Brandon Kowalis was sent down to take Dave's place, and he brought in the radio again so John's family could talk to him. His wife Emily pleaded with him. She said, quote, "I know you've been pushing so hard for so long. Why don't you take a break and then you can push again?" While Emily was still holding out hope that he'd be okay, Brandon could see what she couldn't. John didn't respond and was already unconscious. Over the previous several hours, Ryan had reported the gurgling breaths that John was struggling with. Now there was silence. The rescue team gathered in the pit area and discussed the situation. It was determined that a medical professional would need to confirm what they all feared. When a paramedic was sent in, he was able to confirm what they all suspected. At 11:56 on Wednesday, November 25th, John was pronounced dead. The rescue teams worked for over 24 hours straight to try to free John, but it was impossible. John had survived for 27 hours upside down, which was 3 times longer than what was predicted as possible.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Just the fact that he survived that long and then they were unable to get him out is like extra fucking sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, at this point, can't we just like drill a hole into the earth and pull him out? I don't know, like something. I don't know. I know it's probably not probable, but like, can we just like scoop him?
If it was like, it was tough because, like I said, only smaller power tools could get down to where he was, and there wasn't really anything, like no caves really around where he was, so it would have just taken too long, from my understanding of it.
And he was probably too deep into the earth, but I'm just picturing like, I mean, and what year was this that this happened?
2009.
Yeah, so the technology even then wasn't as good as probably what we have today, but like, you know, those radar guns people can drive over the earth to try to find like bodies and shit. Like get one of those and then get like a one of the drills that they use to drill for oil and just drill down to him and then keep expanding or something. Like I know it probably isn't probable. It wouldn't have worked either, but like the fact that the only option was to try to pull him up through this freaking bendy straw is like
I think they had people had started to drill in areas that were like closest to him, but it was like they were doing it because it was another option. They didn't necessarily think that was going to work, but they just did it because they all were like, we have to get him out, you know?
Right. Mm-hmm. Just really sad.
Yeah.
And it's
So
just like you're fighting with the literal like
the earth.
core of the earth. How are you?
Yeah.
It doesn't win. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't win. It doesn't give up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Emily couldn't understand how they could know he was dead and was terrified to leave. She thought, quote, what if he's not dead and he wakes up and no one's there? But John hadn't moved, spoken, or breathed for hours.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm out of tears at this point, but like,
I know.
Jesus fucking Christ. How could you not think that too?
Right. But there's no way, with how hard they worked to try to get him out, they would not, they were sure that he was gone.
Right.
So eventually Emily got in the car with John's family and left. The
How
six
did she
rescue
even walk at
workers,
that point?
she probably was
I
carried.
would
I
have
would
just
have to be
been
carried.
limp on the ground. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the six rescue workers who were able to reach John in the area were they were truly heroic. They willfully entered a portion of the cave that was unmapped with many known risks. They were selfless in their efforts, maintained a calm demeanor, and never gave up on a seemingly impossible rescue. According to Utah
Um,
County Sheriff. Mhm.
can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
It seemed like when you were telling more about the cave at the beginning, it seemed like how to get to the birth canal was relatively well known. And if they had a map, I know you said the map wasn't done well. I'm confused how they decided to split up in the first place and they didn't have more information about where they were trying to locate.
So, okay, let me pull up a map real quick. Okay, so they would have gone down the big slide and then they ended up taking a wrong turn because there's like several other offshoots, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
even all through the like the tighter parts of the cave, there are smaller like areas that it's possible you could go in, like take a wrong turn and get stuck. Like the map, I'll send it to you. The map isn't like super detailed. It's just like a
Right.
rough draft type thing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm trying to make sense of something that doesn't really make sense.
right. So I think that the two friends
Oh,
that went the
wow.
other way, the
Oh
two
my
friends that went the
god.
other way probably found the birth canal.
Oh my god. Oh my god. That is
Yeah.
insane. And then it looks like the birth canal comes to a point where there's two different ways you can go and they like twist on top of each other.
Yeah.
That is insane. Wow.
So, according to Utah County Sheriff Sergeant Tom Hodgson, the 137 people who tried to free John were physically and mentally exhausted after the 27-hour effort and were offered critical stress counseling. He said, quote, "It isn't in our makeup to leave anything undone. They still feel like there is work left to be done, that they didn't bring closure to the Jones family." He described the Hercules how do I pronounce this? Herculean effort as the most difficult rescue he worked on in 30 years. John's brother Josh said that the family stands behind the crews and are grateful for their efforts. He said, quote, "There are some who feel like they failed our family. We know they did their best. We want to thank them from the bottom of our hearts."
For the people that think that they failed the family, I understand that you're frustrated, but don't.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't.
Yeah.
The only thing that failed was nothing. Gravity did what it was supposed to. Physics did what they were supposed to. People, man, they're not supposed to be able to fight against that. And oh my god.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is probably the saddest story you've ever told on the show.
It's really, like, nothing good came out of it.
And I'm exhausted.
In my opinion. Yeah.
I cannot wait to go to bed.
Yeah,
no, I know I'm not trying to rush you. I'm just like, the emotional turmoil this is taking on us, or me right now, just hearing the story, like, nothing in comparison to anyone else's experience, but wow.
Yeah, this is, it's just tough. But shortly after John's death, it was decided that retrieving his body was too great a risk to rescuers, and they'd seal the cave permanently with his body still inside. His family was, of course, at first, when they were told about this, they were horrified. But after it was explained that the only way that they were ever going to be able to get him out was with his assistance. Like, they can't pull dead weight out of a fissure like that. It's impossible, especially with how wedged he is.
And if they did try to, they would have to sever his body parts, and at some point you're not going to have anything to hold on to, and you're just going to, for lack of a better term, like, lose the rest of him.
Yeah.
So
yeah, eventually his family and rescue officials fully supported this decision. The Utah County Sheriff's Sergeant Spencer Cannon said, quote, "The cave will serve as a final resting place for John Edward Jones. It will be, as they describe it, a sacred place for them and for a lot of other people." John's wife Emily said, quote, "John loves the outdoors. He loves Utah. It's so fitting that it's his spot now." And I love that she said loves instead of loved, you know?
And the tears are back.
Yeah.
Because, like, it kind of leaves, like, some closure not there, but at the same time, his body, what would they have done with it? Put it in the ground.
Yeah.
So he's there, but
it's in the ground.
Doing something he would have loved, and
yeah. So officials did consider closing only the part of the cave where John's body rests, but as Kim Christie, assistant director at the Trust Lands Administration, said, quote, "We decided it probably wasn't appropriate to have recreational activities going on in the same area that was a final resting place." And I completely agree with that. I would never want to do anything.
Beautiful, because you know that someone would come along and try to be stupid.
Yep.
And disturb it. Or, I mean, I'm looking at the map you just sent me, like, the Scout Eater, all these other places are so dangerous anyways.
Yeah. Who's to say it would never happen again?
Right. Why disturb the final resting place, and why even open it up for more danger?
Yeah.
Or more death.
Agreed. So according to Josh, John's brother, John had explored many caves and loved the outdoors, so his family struggled with the decision to close Nutty Putty Cave to future visitors, but they felt it would be John's will to protect the safety of future cavers.
Mm-hmm.
And remember Dale Green? He's the guy who discovered the cave. He disagrees with this closing of the cave, and he said, quote, "I think they can do nearly the same thing by blocking off access to this one part of the cave. That's really the only problem here. I just think it's a big loss to people if they do that." And I disagree. I just added it because he discovered the cave. Somebody died like there. Somebody's body is there. Like, no.
I feel like he's only saying that because he's butthurt that he discovered it and no one can go see what he discovered, but, like...
Yeah, exactly.
It's just too dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Even just the first few steps of getting in there, and then if people can get lost that easily, let's just not do it, and
there's
just
other
end
caves.
the fact. Right.
So it only took a week.
Maybe...
Oh,
sorry. Maybe
you're good.
It's a sign in a way that means that we weren't meant to do these things. Like,
yeah.
I understand the need for adventure and wanting to see these things. There's lots of things I want to go do and see, but maybe the universe, the earth, whatever is trying to say, hey, this ground is, well, it's now sacred, but who knows what it was before.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a place meant for human
Especially in Utah.
exploration. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
the way that it looks like it was either some sort of water, like natural spring or something that has to do with like volcanic activity from way forever ago, or some sort of like animal den.
Mm-hmm.
It just not, it's not for us to go lurking into, just like we were never meant to go that far down into the ocean in a submarine. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I understand the need for adventure, but at some point you have to look at it as we need wonder in the world too. So just let people wonder and don't risk people's lives or your own life. And I'm not saying John did anything wrong by any means. No blame put on
No.
him, but there has to be a point where enough is enough and boundaries are set. And personally, I've never been one to do something that dangerous, and I'm okay with that. And do I think that I'll regret never doing these things? Maybe slightly, but I think I would regret it more if that meant something happened to me or my loved ones.
Yeah. And
You
like
know?
part of the argument against closing the cave was like we still don't know a lot about what is down there, like a scientific argument, and I get it. Science is great. I don't know that much about it, but I stand behind science 100%. But there's so much other stuff we could look into that's not this cave, that's not somebody's tomb, you know?
Right. Or if we do want to explore it, it doesn't need to be a human. We sent a
Mhm.
literal robot to Mars.
Mhm.
Why can't we send a robot into the caves?
Yeah.
Just avoid the part where John is at. You don't need to be there. Let him rest and get pictures, do other things. Like, it doesn't need to be, man doesn't need to fucking ruin everything.
Yeah.
John didn't ruin
I
anything. I'm
agree.
not saying that at all. I want to make sure I get that across, but I just feel like there's this air of like we have the right to do these things, but we don't listen to what the earth is telling us. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know, it just feels disrespectful to try to continue to do these things when incidences continue to occur and then there was a death.
Yeah, like that was not the first incident. Like people have almost died in there multiple times.
Right.
Closed
And
it.
there's so
Like
many
keep people
other
safe.
stories. Mhm. Exactly.
So we're almost done. Um
Okay. God, I gave myself a
oh
headache.
A week after John's death, the Utah County Sheriff's Office started to seal off the cave, despite the significant backlash, and it was completely sealed within a few days. There's one where John's body is resting, and one at the only entrance at the top of Blowhole Hill. Sheriff Jim Tracy said it wasn't a decision that would make everybody happy, but it serves all parties the best. A plaque was placed at the entrance to commemorate the life of John Edward Jones. It has a photo of him taking up most of the space on the plaque. It's a really good picture of him smiling, and it says, on November 25th, 2009, our beloved John passed away at this site. He was a loving father, a kind husband, a loyal son, and a true and cherished friend. Those who knew John best will remember his faith and his caring heart. Thank you, John, for showing us how to make eternity our covering and our rock and our salvation as we journey here on earth. We will miss you and love you always. 1983 to 2009.
Wow.
Yeah. And I just have a few little paragraphs about the aftermath with like some of the or not the researchers, the rescuers. Um,
Mhm.
so Ryan Schertz was one of the many rescuers who went to John's funeral. He spoke with Emily and told her what he and John had spoken about in the cave. He told her that John mentioned that he would be there for the birth of their second child no matter what, which is so beautiful.
He was.
Mm-hmm.
He was. Maybe not on the
Yeah,
physical form.
yeah. I think that's what he
Who
meant
knows,
when he said it.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe his part of his soul, part of his being, part of whatever ended up within
Yeah.
that child. I
Mm-hmm.
truly believe that.
I
Oh, I gave
agree.
myself chills. God damn it.
Ryan's physical injuries did heal, and he returned to work. It's still really painful for him to talk about John. Ryan believes that if John had lived, they would have been really close friends.
I bet they would have.
Yeah. So Susie replayed the rescue attempt over and over in her head for weeks after John died, trying to find something they could have done differently. And I get it, but like, you guys did everything you could.
Yeah. It's so hard because I know I'd be in the exact same boat, but looking at it from the outside, there's nothing you could have done.
Yeah, you did everything. You literally risked your life to save his.
Yep.
She ended up reading a friend's blog at one point about finding a blessing in terrible things, but she was unable to find anything good coming out of John's death. And I guess John's younger brother Josh ended up hearing that Susie was having a really tough time, and he ended up calling her and just asked her a bunch of questions and just chatted with her, and she poured her heart out. Josh listened and they continued talking. They worked through their grief together and they built a really strong friendship. They're both outdoor lovers, and now Susie gets an invitation when Josh gathers a group to go camping, mountain biking, or kayaking.
Why is it always the worst things bring people together the best?
Right?
It's so beautiful. And like for him as the brother, like, yes, Susie was greatly affected, but he lost his brother. And he's taking his time to reach out to her as someone who just went, traumatic experience. I'm not trying to lessen that, but it's a different relationship. And he's taking the time to make sure she's okay.
Yeah.
And that they could help each other. Like, oh,
yeah,
so
and
beautiful.
He was like, I didn't add this in because, like I said, I didn't want to like copy paste, but he was carrying his own guilt with the whole thing because he's the one who suggested they go. He's the one that got the permit. So for a long time, he felt like it was his fault, which is not.
Yeah. No. And I feel like in this case, it's probably really good that they had the fate that they did because a lot of other people who didn't have that probably would have ended their own lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. So for Emily, his wife, she found peace when she and John's family said a final prayer. I guess when the rescue attempt was still happening, like right before they had found out that he had passed, they did a final prayer, and the peace from that never left her. She said, "It's not that I believe because it's the only thing that gets me through. It's just that I just know that he's still watching out for us, that our family is still a family."
Glasses came off. It's sad. It's like
I know, dude.
I don't know how you feel that way because like there are things that have happened in my life and people that I've lost that still haunt me or hurt me and bring me grief to this day. And like some days I don't feel like I have that strength, and for her to have that strength is just amazing to me.
I agree. And she was so young when this happened too. It's just like your whole part of your whole world was just like ripped from you. I couldn't.
Right, and like especially in the Mormon religion and the Mormon faith and like that way of life, I'm sure they met, either in church or through something like that, and that was probably her first like everything, and it was her husband, and they had a daughter together and another one on the way, and all of a sudden she's not alone, but she's a single parent.
Mm-hmm.
And like
they'd been
I
married
can't
for like
imagine.
4.5 years or something.
So she spent the majority of, I'm sure, her adult life with him, and he seemed like a great human. So, and like it makes it even harder losing someone who's so good.
So I just have one more paragraph. the article that I got this information from is from 2019. I'm not sure what she's up to right now, but as of 2019, after his death, she went home to Salem, Virginia. She moved in with her parents and was applying to graduate schools. And their son was born on June 15th, and she named him John. I know.
Of course it was a boy.
I know.
Oh my God. How excited would he have been?
He was there.
He was, but I'm sorry. I don't know why this is making me so emotional.
No, dude, you're fine.
It's so sad.
It is. It is. He will.
Guys, don't watch this YouTube video. Or like stop the first time I sob because I'm losing it.
You know what I could do? I could just put, you know, the meme of Kim Kardashian crying. I can just put it over your face.
Yeah, especially when I get really bad, because I'm an ugly ass crier, and my face, my face is so red, and like look at how puffy my eyes are.
You look great.
Thank you. It just hurts my heart so much.
I know.
So everyone knows I'm a big baby.
You're not a baby. You're an empath, and you're feeling what they've not fully what they felt, but you just like you can put yourself there,
channeling some of it. Yeah. And I know a lot of people will be like, I'm an empath, but like I truly believe that about myself, and this hurts. Like,
yeah,
just thinking
that's how I felt when I first heard it.
How do you not sob? I don't know. We're built the same and different at the same time.
Yeah. No, believe me, dude, I was like crying all day yesterday. I was researching this.
You did send me a few snaps where you looked troubled.
Yeah.
A better word.
Yeah. But
you didn't tell me you were crying. You could have warned a bitch.
I held back tears a couple times during this episode, but I felt like it might be a little uncomfortable for the viewers to just watch two sad bitches.
And I'm sorry if I'm making anyone uncomfortable, and I'm so stuffy. I'm trying not to snorfle. But I did watch you wipe one single tear away from your eye, and I was like, there it is.
I wasn't trying to insinuate that you were making anyone uncomfortable. I was just like, it might be weird just to watch two girls cry.
Yeah. People might love it, but I'm sure crying makes a lot of people uncomfortable. I love crying.
Not me. Same.
It just feels so good. It hurts, but it feels good because it helps let the hurt out. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, if I could just go in the living room after this and just sob with my dogs for a while, that's all the therapy I need.
Yeah, so that is the story of the Nutty Putty Cave incident and the death of the wonderful John Edward Jones. Judge. Yeah. So.
But I have a question that's on and off topic at the same time.
Okay.
What is it with J names and religious people?
Jeebus.
Oh, you just cracked the fucking code. Goddamn, you should be in the CIA. Because anytime I hear of multiple J names in a family, especially a religious one, I just think of the Duggars.
Yeah.
Which I'm not comparing the Jones to the Duggars, because obviously they're nothing alike except that they're religious. But you were like, Jonathan and Joshua, and I was like, and Jedediah and Jebediah and Johanna and John Anna and Banana and that's not what it I don't even know. John Michael and John Luke and John and I don't know. There's so many of those children, but holy shit. This is the... I'm glad we're not doing another one after this because my brain
I did not expect
hurts.
it to be this long.
Oh, I did. When you said you had 24 pages of research, knowing you and your research and how thorough it is, plus how much I like to talk and add commentary, the sobbing was just like a bonus. I feel like this needs to be behind a paywall.
There ended up being like 32 pages, but
you're like, I'm not gonna tell him.
But yeah, I'm glad we're not doing a second or a fourth one tonight. I think that's a good stopping point. We can, because my other episode is like, it's not this intense, but it's mysterious.
Do I need to bring tissues?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I should probably get a box to put back here. I'm like, crying gives me a headache almost automatically, so I'm like, just dying over here. But
well, before Sam dies on camera,
but that was a really good story, and you do such good work at like honoring the people who need to be honored, and
I try to.
It's a great story. I know I could hear it again without sobbing this much. I think it might take a few times for me not to cry at all. But yeah, I don't know if you want to give them any of our info, but I'm just gonna sit here and press on my eye socket because my head hurts.
I will do that. So, okay, if you guys want to message us on Instagram or follow us on Instagram, it's at Educate Me Papa. Or if you want to find us on Facebook, it's Educate Me Papa.
Oh my god.
It's Educate Me Papa dash the podcast. If you want to find us on TikTok, what is our TikTok? Is it just Educate Me Papa?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
On TikTok, it's Educate Me Papa. If you want to email us, it's educatemepapa@gmail.com. There's probably more. Follow us on YouTube. Watch our YouTube shit. Maybe not. Actually watch it for the Kim Kardashian meme over Sam's face.
Yes. Also, if you want to know my P.O. box so you can send me immense numbers of boxes of tissues, email us because I'll give it to you. Oh my god.
All right. And with that, we would like to thank you for listening. Thank you for listening.
We cry. Thank you for listening. We cry. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. We cry. Thank you for listening. I can't. Thank you for listening. I'm so sorry.
Poo-poo and pee-pee out.
We love you. Speaking of which, laughing like that made me almost pee my pants. There was just liquid coming from every orifice right now.
Oh no. All right, we're gonna go before Sam shits herself.
Oh, I just have to pee.
Oh, I just have to pee, quote unquote. All right. Bye.
She's a bully.
Bye. Bye.